Last summer, Peppa Pig entered the deep, dark wood, located the Gruffalo, and persuaded him to come and live with her. Since then, they'd put up a picture, played a football match together, and the Gruffalo had become a vegetarian. But very little else had happened. Peppa reminded herself that Rome wasn't built in a day.
Don't you know that Rome wasn't built in a day? Hey, hey, hey.
And that world domination takes time. It might be a case of... But even so, Peppa reflected that it was hard work trying to become a world leader, and these things don't just happen overnight. Peppa and the Gruffalo watched as the Lovely Place channel continued to make random films for YouTube on all sorts of incongruent, mismatched, banal subjects, and marvelled that even without a niche audience, or an established fan base, or even a rudimentary knowledge of storytelling, editing, or trick photography, the Lovely Place channel was slowly but surely gathering subscribers one at a time.
2 steps forward, I'll take 2 steps back.
Then all of a sudden, one day, the Lovely Place channel read a story about Fireman Sam, and things began to change. Peppa got on the phone to the Gruffalo, who'd left his cave in the deep dark wood, enrolled his child in the local primary school, and was currently making a living as an exam invigilator, and invited him round to hers for a cup of tea and a little chat. The Gruffalo wasted no time. He grabbed a litre of cherry ice cream made by Owl from his freezer and pounded his way over to Peppa's house, his turned-out toes leaving deep gouges in the fields and his purple prickles bristling with excitement. Peppa opened her door as soon as she saw him running up her hill. And led him straight to her office. Spread over her desk were the 6 Fireman Sam books Lovely Place had just read for the Lovely Place channel. "Gruff," she said, "I think I've just found the perfect person to join our crack team."
Our crackpot team?
Said the Gruffalo.
I'm not entirely sure why you took me out of the deep dark wood, but I'm sure it will all become clear.
Peppa pushed the books towards the Gruffalo. "Take a read," she said, "while I put the kettle on." The Gruffalo made himself comfortable and began to read. It didn't take long. When he'd finished, he looked up at Peppa and said,
I don't get it.
Peppa smiled, leaned back in her chair, rested her little back trotters on her desk and her little front trotters behind her head. "You've just read six Fireman Sam books, right?"
Correct.
Said the Gruffalo. "And of those 6, that's right, 6 books, how many times does Fireman Sam appear?" The Gruffalo had a quick count up.
Twice?
He hazarded. "Correct," said Peppa. "And even then, he only appears halfway through or right at the end, yes?"
Your point being?
Said the Gruffalo. "The point being," said Peppa very slowly, "is that Fireman Sam has gathered over 10 more subscribers for the Lovely Place channel on his name alone. He doesn't even have to appear in his stories to have subscribers tune in to find out what he's up to." "How many of my books do I not appear in?" she asked the Gruffalo.
I don't know.
Said the Gruffalo.
The Lovely Place has read a lot of your books, and I think you feature in every one.
"I think I do too," said Peppa. "I'm a very busy little pig. And you've only featured in 2 books, but even so, your books have achieved by far the greatest number of viewings. Whereas this," she waved her trotters over the books, "this guy, this hero," and she did that thing with the 2-finger quotes, "clearly has time on his hands, time that we could use. Time to help us."
Help us with what?
Said the Gruffalo. I'm waiting for a sign, said Peppa mysteriously, but in the meantime I want you to go to Pontypaddy, wherever that is, and persuade Fireman Sam to join us.
And how exactly am I going to do that?
Asks the Gruffalo.
Simple,
Said Peppa. You are, after all, the personification of fear, are you not?
Well, I suppose so, said the Gruffalo.
So, use the fear.
use the force, Luke.
Use your force.
How can I scare a fireman? He fights fire. He's the very definition of a hero. He's scared of no one and nothing.
Oh, laughed Peppa. Everyone is afraid of something. I suggest you go in disguise.
Disguised as what?
Asks the Gruffalo. Why, as a hermiferous inspector, of course.
A what?
A hermiferous inspector, said Peppa again.
Hermiferous?
Correct.
And what's that? I've never heard of it.
Well, maybe it's pronounced HMICFRS, said Peppa. Schools have Ofsted. The NHS has the CQC. And firemen are scrutinised by Hermiferous. His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services.
Never heard of them,
Said the Gruffalo. Well, that's fine, said Peppa. You might not have heard of them, but my guess is that Fireman Sam knows exactly who they are, and they are the stuff of his own personal nightmares. So go and find yourself an ill-fitting black suit and tie, get yourself a clipboard and a small laptop-type device, and go and persuade Fireman Sam to come and join us. Capiche? And that, my friends, is why Peppa Pig and the Gruffalo asked Fireman Sam to join their gang. The week before Fireman Sam met the Gruffalo, he had no idea his life was about to change forever. Turns out Fireman Sam was probably the best fireman
In the world. In the world. In the world. In the world.
because he showed children where the dangers were and how to prevent them. Stories from the Fireman Sam series taught children about assessing risks, and as a result, the children survived many fatal accidents and were able to keep themselves safe enough to grow into adults who had children of their own, rather than having nasty accidents with matches, candles, or electricity pylons. But teaching people how to keep themselves safe had an unfortunate side effect for Fireman Sam. No more house fires from candles or matches or irons left on meant no more fires for Fireman Sam to put out. Fireman Sam was forced to diversify. Occasionally he rescued a kitten from a tree or a puppy stuck down a well, but most days he visited schools or small businesses to give safety lectures and demonstrations. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, he mused to himself.
Damn, I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
He muttered under his breath. And then, as he made his way back to his fire truck, he felt the mobile phone he kept in his pocket vibrate. It was a call he had come to dread.
Ah, is that you, Fireman Sam?
Said a clipped and professional voice on the end of the line.
This is your local representative from His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services here. Just wanting to let you know you're due for an inspection soon. Obviously, I can't tell you how soon, but soon-ish.
Laughed the little voice at the end of the line.
I'm sure you'll have nothing to worry about, especially if you have implemented properly all our recommendations from our last visit, which I'm sure you have, and of course you will be up to date with the latest changes in legislation and have prepared a copy of all the policies to hand when we visit.
Fireman Sam's tummy did a little flip and then settled like a lead weight.
Oh, and I shouldn't really be telling you this,
continued the voice.
but after we've finished our inspection of your staff, your premises, and you, we will be popping into the local supermarket and wet fish cafe to have a chat with the residents to find out what they think of your service too. Doesn't hurt to be thorough, does it? I just wanted you to know. Cheerio!
Fireman Sam's heart sank. He remembered how much he used to enjoy his job in the days when he had just finished his training and people trusted him to make the right decision. In the heat of the moment. See what I did there? And now it was just one long, tedious audit carried out by people who had never been firemen or fought fires. Fireman Sam went home, feeling sad and wondering if his life would ever hold any meaning, never realising that this was all part of the Gruffalo's devious plan. Fireman Sam's week before meeting the Gruffalo was terrible. He couldn't sleep properly. He kept waking up in the middle of the night, needing to go to the toilet, and once back in bed, he couldn't seem to get back to sleep. His days were spent reading and rereading the fire station policies, except on Wednesday, when the internet inexplicably went down, and somehow 3 policies, the one about kittens up trees, the one about puppies down wells, and the one about whose responsibility it was to buy tea bags for the fire station, suddenly disappeared. He tried to unwind by watching TikToks, which all of a sudden were about kittens in trees that fell before the fire brigade arrived, or puppies down wells that tragically drown, and he felt about as low as he could get, which of course, as we know, was all part of the Gruffalo's devious plan. The Gruffalo finished his lukewarm cup of tea at Peppa's house and returned home with a lot on his mind. He rang Mummy Pig and asked her if she would collect his child when she got George from school and have her for a sleepover. Mummy Pig agreed happily, as George was a lot easier to look after when he had friends round to play. Next, the Gruffalo assembled his disguise. If the Lovely Place channel had a bigger budget, this would involve a montage of clips, but a few photos will have to do. You know the thing. Cheap suit, black tie, clipboard, clicking pens and a small laptop in cover. And finally, the Gruffalo got into character. This involved a long hot bath, shaving his tusks down, flattening his purple pickles and squeezing the poison out of the wart on the end of his nose. Then approximately a week after his meeting with Peppa, he poured himself a generous glass of Chianti and ate a steaming bowl of fava beans while he calmly watched the sunset. The Gruffalo takes his role as the personification of fear very seriously. It requires careful planning and preparation. Yes, he could simply turn up in the right place at the right time, but where would be the fear in that? Far better to prepare his victim beforehand, with a well-placed phone call announcing his arrival, but providing no exact date or time, just a vague warning that he was due to arrive any day now. Then to send a few sleepless nights on ahead, allowing the person to wake in the night and lie in the dark, worrying about what the outcome might be. Not forgetting a few items in the news outlining others who had failed the checks and been shut down as a result. As the sun shone its final rays before nightfall, the Gruffalo set off. When the Gruffalo is not helping Peppa Pig hang pictures or playing football or caring for his daughter, he is the personification of fear. Fear doesn't drive his own car. Fear doesn't take a train. Fear pounds his way on foot through the night. Fear is the sound of toenails tearing up the ground, deep breaths, things that go bump in the night. Fear howls at the moon. And that's exactly what the Gruffalo did as he pounded through the night to Pontypaddy. He ran through the towns and villages, carrying his disguise in a pack on his back. He howled at the moon, and he made things go bump in the night. And everyone was just a little teeny tiny bit more afraid of the dark as he ran past. When morning came, the Gruffalo arrived at his pre-booked Airbnb, checked himself in using the code he had been texted on the keypad, and got ready. He showered and shaved, dressed himself in his cheap black suit, donned his Ray-Ban sunglasses that had the dual purpose of hiding his orange eyes and also giving the impression he was looking everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and set off to catch Fireman Sam by well-planned and carefully prepared surprise. Fireman Sam spotted the Gruffalo straight away as he walked into the fire station, and even though he was a brave and courageous hero, inside he was filled with a sickening fear and unease, which was exactly the effect the Gruffalo had planned.
Ah, you must be Fireman Sam,
said the Gruffalo.
I'm about to make you an offer you can't refuse.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Fireman Sam gets radicalized. Fireman Sam smelled the terrible breath before he recognized the terrible tusks and terrible claws and the terrible teeth in the terrible jaws. Even though the creature in front of him was wearing an ill-fitting black suit, white shirt and black tie, Fireman Sam knew he was staring into the jaws of the personification of fear. But because he was a legendary hero, he didn't feel quite as frightened as he expected to be. So instead of turning into a shaking, shivering wreck, he stretched out his hand and shook the clawed paw of the Gruffalo. "Ah, Mr.
Purple,
said the Gruffalo.
Mr. Purple.
How about if I'm Mr. Purple? That sounds good to me. I'll be Mr. Purple.
You're not Mr. Purple. Some guy on some other job is Mr. Purple. You're Mr. Pink.
Mr. Purple, won't you come into my office and let's see what we can do for you?"
Lead the way, Fireman Sam.
said the Gruffalo.
But in actual fact, it's not about what you can do for me. It's what I can do for you.
Fireman Sam led the Gruffalo into his office and they both sat down on either side of Fireman Sam's desk. The Gruffalo flipped open the case of his small laptop, took the clipboard out of his briefcase and clicked the pen in his breast pocket.
Fireman Sam,
he said, then paused.
May I call you Sam?
By all means, said Fireman Sam. The Gruffalo paused. He knew that sometimes silence can be far worse than anything actually said, and so he paused for just a little bit longer than necessary, waiting for Fireman Sam to say something, or at the very least begin to fidget. But Fireman Sam sat perfectly still, waiting for the Gruffalo to carry on. The Gruffalo didn't mention it, but in private he knew that he was in the presence of a real hero. Most people would have crumbled by now. Except for the mouse, of course, but thankfully that frightening creature was still roaming around the deep dark wood, far away from here. Instead, he cleared his throat and said,
Look, I'll keep it brief. Our subscribers have quite short attention spans. I have been sent by Peppa Pig to ask you if you'd like to join our little group, our club, our gang. Not really sure what it is yet exactly, but would you like to join with us? Basically, Sam, I'm about to make you an offer you can't refuse.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Fireman Sam looked momentarily confused. He sat back in his seat and, taking his helmet off, scratched his head. "Well, I did not see that coming," he said. "I guess I have to ask, why me?"
Well, Sam,
said the Gruffalo.
the Lovely Place channel began as a result of our anonymous narrator losing their job, having some time on their hands, and attempting to break into content creating. Who knows what's going on in their tiny human brain, but for some reason they think that a hero like you might come in useful. I suspect,
he went on,
that it has a lot to do with your name. Lovely Place has read 6 stories from your series, got a few new subscribers and thousands of views, and thought you showed promise. Whether you continue to measure up to their exacting standards, whatever those might be, I have no idea. What I do know is that after making numerous videos about all sorts of things, the Lovely Place read some children's stories and started to get a small but faithful following. So I would suggest that instead of asking, why me, ask yourself, why not me? Personally speaking,
went on the Gruffalo,
I was only the star of one extremely successful book by Julia Donaldson and one slightly less successful sequel, which was mostly about my daughter. As for Peppa Pig, well, she's the franchise that just keeps on going. But she's getting old, and she feels like she has so much more to give. Let's face it, when did you last feature in the life of a small child? Or have you just drifted into the nostalgic memory of a millennial? I've no doubt that you may have inspired Sir Terry Pratchett to create Corporal Carrot Ironfountain, but there's no actual proof that this is the case. So wouldn't you like to be remembered for something that you don't even know is going to happen? Just imagine the possibilities.
Fireman Sam looked sceptical. The Gruffalo continued.
Look, Sam, there's no such thing as a completely original idea anymore. All I know is the Lovely Place channel has a story they want to tell, and for some reason, they think we can help with this. But what do I know?
But what about my job here?
Said
the Gruffalo.
You can still do your job here. Think of this as a hero-in-waiting kind of role. Just carry on as you are. No need to tell anyone or do anything different to what you're doing now. But be ready for when we give you the call.
Okay, said Sam.
Really?
Said the Gruffalo.
You're good to go?
Yup, said Sam.
Okay. Cool. Right, well, thanks. I'll best be getting back then.
Yup, said Sam.
Okay, goodbye then. And, see you sometime.
Sure, said Sam. The Gruffalo stood up, shook the proffered hand and saw himself out. Sam watched him leave from behind the blinds in his office. He wasn't quite sure what he'd agreed to, except that he hadn't yet agreed to anything, just that he'd answer when he got the call. So he resolved to cross that bridge when, or if, it ever happened. And with a shrug of his shoulders, Sam gathered up all the policies he had on his desk, opened the flip top on his bin, and threw them all in. And that, my friends, is the story of how Fireman Sam agreed to join with the Gruffalo and Peppa Pig to go on their quest, adventure, odyssey/legend, whatever it may be, because basically he was a man that hadn't yet learned how to say no. To find out what happened next, please stay tuned to the Lovely Place channel by subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free. The channel of no niches, no technical ability, no clue. Thanks very much and bye for now.